right, let's move forward with our lead speaker for tonight, Bill Cates, who's going to talk to us about how to build your $1 million speaking business. Bill Cates is a hardworking, successful speaker and a business owner. Bill is the founding member of NSA's $1 Million Speakers Group and has sustained a 7-figure speaking business by becoming extremely focused on his business. A 30-year veteran of this business, Bill is the author of 6 books, his most recent book being Radical Relevance, as well as many corporate video training programs, took a license by companies around the world. He is also the host of the acclaimed www.topadvisorpodcast.com. In addition to being a certified professional speaker, Bill was inducted into the Professional Speakers Hall of Fame in 2010. Bill's referral system has been featured in Success Magazine, Selling Power Magazine, The Wall Street Journal, and Entrepreneur Magazine. And his own business success has been featured in Money Magazine. Bill doesn't just talk about what it takes to be successful in this business. He's actually doing it. So without any further ado, let's welcome Bill Cates. Give him a warm Black NSA welcome. Great to have you here, Bill.
Great to be here. Thank you. Greetings from a hotel somewhere in Dallas, Texas, near the airport. I spoke earlier this morning and wanted to shift hotels so I could be close to the airport for tomorrow. Fighting off the end of a cold, so forgive me if my voice cracks up a little bit. I see Willie Blue is on the call. Willie saw me in St. Louis a few weeks ago. Willie, it's going to be like watching the same TV episode over again, but a shortened version. So here are my goals for today's session. I want to give you a bit of my beliefs and thinking that has allowed me to build a successful business, because sometimes it's not the strategies, it's the thinking, the decision-making process. Show you some of the decisions I've made along the way, see how it applies to you and your business, and then inspire you to see what's possible for you. I know we have a wide range of folks on this call with different success levels. And so here's one thing I know for sure, that some of you will be able to apply all of what I talk about here today, and all of you will be able to apply some of what I talk about here today. If there's something I'm talking about, it doesn't seem to fit you, don't worry, we'll be moving on to another topic soon. So questions, I'm going to go for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes at the most, and then open it up for some questions. There's my email address, billcates@referralcoach.com. Also under my video, I put renamed so you can see my email there. Any questions come up later down the road, just shoot me a question. Happy to do anything I can do to help you guys. So one of the big decisions was that I developed a system that solved the blatant critical problem tied to revenue. So let me tell you what I mean by this. The best way to position a business is when you solve a blatant problem, meaning they know they have the problem. These are what I'm going to talk about. Sorry, this is my table of contents. Sorry about that. And create a reputation in the target market. We're talking about my relevance laboratory, and we're going to talk about video training. All right, now, first I want to give you a tease, because we're going to talk a little bit about licensing. I always like to tell my story of my first licensing. Essentially, I got a call from Wells Fargo, and they wanted, I have a bit of a reputation in financial services, and they wanted to know how they could use my intellectual property for their wholesalers to go out and do some training, some value-added programs with financial advisors. So essentially, they were going to be paying me for the right to use my intellectual property for about 20 to 30 minutes. So they were paying me to market me, is really what it boiled down to. And I'm going to give you the short version of this, but essentially, I didn't know how to price this. And I talked to Ann Backrack, who works with Bill Backer, his wife. I wasn't sure what to do there. I priced it at $55,000 when I gave it to my assistant to proofread, and she brought it back to me. And then I bumped it up to $75,000 when I finally sent it to the client. and it was about 1.25 years of a deal, so close to 100,000. And I didn't hear anything for like 3 weeks. And I thought, oh, I blew her out of the water with pricing. Okay, easy come, easy go. But then I got a call from Kara, and she said, all right, so you're telling me for a little under $100,000, you'll do one presentation to our wholesalers. We can use the PowerPoint presentation, and we can make a recording so they can kind of learn from you. Yeah, we can do that. And then we have the right to use this. Yep. She says, would you mind if I sent you 4 separate checks so that we don't have to get special approval for each check? If it's under 25,000, we don't need special approval. I said, yeah, that'd be okay. So that was my first licensing deal, just shy of $100,000, essentially being paid for them to be able to market my contents. Well, that's a little tease to that one. I just inked my 22nd year, or roughly 20, with Bankers Life. We've done a 1.7 million or so in licensing deals with Bankers Life. My program is part of their new agent training. Every new agent that gets hired by Bankers Life goes through my training, and have been forever. This is why I like to call it printing money legally. More on that in a minute. All right, so here's the slide that I thought I was on: solving a blatant critical problem tied to revenue. So the best way to position a business is when they know they have the problem and the problem is critical. So if they don't know they have the problem, then we have to educate them and teach them that this is a dormant problem, or it's a problem that they have that could come and bite them in the butt later, but they don't know they have it. That's doable, but takes a little time and energy, and not everybody's receptive to that. Or they may see the challenge, the problem, as aspirational, something they will get around to eventually. Yes, we'd love to do a wellness program. Yes, we'd love to do a communication program. The soft topics in our industry are often seen as aspirational. So what we need to do if we have an aspirational situation is we need to help them see that it's actually critical. So one example I like to give is my colleague, Stephen Gaffney, talks about communication skills, and started out talking about honesty in the workplace. It was seen as a soft topic. But what he did is he did the research and looked at the research about turnover, employee turnover. And most companies know what it costs to replace an employee when they turn over. And so he tied the work he did to the dollar, to employee retention and employee turnover. So he turned a soft topic into a hard topic, a blatant critical problem. And that's what I do for financial services. They want more referrals, they want more clients, they want more of the right types of clients. And it's in a sea of sameness and a sea of all the social media, it's difficult for them to stand out. So I'm solving a blatant critical problem. This is probably the most important thing of all that I've done, all the decisions I've made in my business. Again, if you have an aspirational-ish situation, if you have an educational situation, it doesn't mean you can't be successful in this business. It's just a little tougher to do it. So let's talk about the digital marketing. We know the thing about digital marketing is it made it really easy to broadcast our message, right? Really easy. But therefore, because it's so easy, we can't get our message to go through. LinkedIn is a new cold calling, especially in financial services industry. So one thing I had to do is I had to separate myself from all the shiny objects around digital marketing. And so what I've kind of done in my space is gone to relationship marketing. Everything I talk about is the path of least resistance, which is the relationships that are right in front of everybody. So here's a model that I teach. This applies to you, by the way. This model applies to my business. It's what I teach my target market, but it also applies to us. So first of all, we've got to be relevant, right? We got to have relevant messaging. How we talk about our value has to be relevant. I wrote a book called Radical Relevance. If we're not radically relevant, then we will be ignored. The brain will just tune us out because it doesn't see us as relevant. Very important, right? Building a reputation in a target market. I'll talk a little bit about that today. And having a very clear, focused market where it's easy to determine who the players are, easy to figure out who to reach out to. And what eventually happens is you build a reputation. If you pick a good market, people will start to come to you. And that's what we want. We don't want just push prospecting. We want attraction marketing. And then referrals is what I've kind of been known for forever. My first book came out in 1996. Now, what we know about these three strategies is they talk to each other, right? If you create a reputation in a target market, if you have a clear target market, then how you talk about your value is automatically going to be more relevant to those people. They can see themselves in your messaging. If you meet someone through a referral, through an introduction from someone they trust, you're going to be more relevant to them, right? So you can see how all these talk to each other. And what I like to tell my audience, and I tell you, is that if you get pretty good at any one of these, you can create incremental growth. But if you get good at all three of these, you create exponential growth. And that's usually what we want, right? We want to grow exponentially. We want to multiply our best clients. So that's one of the models I teach that's being very well received in the industry. It also applies to us as speakers. Another model I teach, now we're diving into the referral side of things. And the model is, first, you got to have a referral mindset. You got to have the right thinking. You all know the importance of mindset, how important that is. I don't have to tell you that. Then we create client engagement. It's engaged clients that will provide referrals and make introductions. Then leverage. We want to find a way to appropriately leverage that referability that we've established. If we become referable, how do we promote? How do we ask for introductions? And then connection. The conversation's not finished until we get connected, till we get introduced to that new prospect. Word of mouth is nice, and it can help in our industry for sure, but introductions, connections, much more important. If we get connected well and we start to use the tools of engagement, then guess what happens? This wheel almost never stops spinning. That's as long as the PowerPoint would let it spin, was 59 seconds. So this is the couple of the models that I teach my industry that also apply to us as well. So let's apply this to the speaking business. So why do referrals work? Well, I like to work on three levels. I like to work on the level of principles, strategies, and tactics. And you might find this helpful. The work you do, the work I do, there's usually very clear core principles always at hand. Principles never change, right? Principles are almost not up for opinion. They are the rules of the road. They are the principles. Then strategies and tactics will change depending on the context. So the principle why referrals work is the principle of borrowed trust. And you've seen how this happen, right? You borrow the trust in one relationship long enough to earn your own trust in the new relationship, and everything gets a lot easier, right? Easier to reach people. They're more likely to follow your recommendations because their friend or colleague followed the recommendation. If you want to move your business in a certain direction towards a certain market, or clients who can pay more for what you offer, then you can use the referral introduction process for that. And studies have shown that clients and customers that come into a business through a referral are 2.5 times more likely to give a referral. So what happens over time is a compounding effect. The more and more people you bring in through the referral process, the easier it will become to build your business through referrals. And that really is how people want to meet you, right? I always like to talk about a winter workshop, NSA winter workshop in Baltimore a number of years ago, where they had 3 meeting planners of large associations. Actually, they were executive directors of the associations, and they hire a lot of speakers. And 2 of the 3 said that they exclusively hire speakers from referrals, from either their association members, from other speakers, and from other meeting planners. So 2 out of 3, that's how they get all their speakers. So all the cold calling and all the social media you want to throw at them, it doesn't make a difference. The other person said 90% of their speakers come through referrals and recommendations from others. So to me, it makes sense to build a business based on how people want to meet you. Now, when you're first getting started, okay, where do those referrals come from? Well, they come from your natural market. They come from the people you already know. And I'm not saying you can't do prospecting. I'm not saying you don't do social media. I'm not saying you don't do cold calling if you have to. There's a lot of things you need to do to get started, but eventually you want to create that momentum that comes from the referral process. And not just referrals, but introductions, connections. Use this word when you're talking to clients, to colleagues, anyone. You're talking about anyone who could connect you to others. Make sure you use the word introduction and connection. Word of mouth is nice. Connection, introduction is really what moves the needle and turns into business. And as I mentioned earlier, the straightest line to relevance with someone who doesn't know you is an introduction from someone that does know you, and knows them, right? Please remember this too, and feel free to share this, that cold calls are God's punishment for failure to get enough referrals. So if you know anybody out there in cold call hell, send them my way. I will help them. All right. So your three primary sources of referrals in this business of speaking: your clients, audience participants, and your colleagues. Now, you don't join NSA to get referrals from your colleagues, and please be careful about that. However, it can happen. And over the years, I've gotten a lot of business from my colleagues in NSA knowing what I do and who I do it for. I've got a large contract with Bank of America that came from Allison Shapira, an NSA member. We meet every other month on a little one-on-one mastermind. When I first got started in this business, I helped with my chapter's speaker university. I got an introduction to a gentleman from that, turned into 75 speaking engagements 2 years in a row, 150 speaking engagements, because I served the NSA chapter and I served NSA. So we know that our colleagues can be a source, but you have to be referable. Don't be going up to folks and looking for their spinoff or their business that they can't take, or, then maybe at a lower fee. The first thing you got to do is become referable in their eyes. They've got to know that you're really good at what you do, or they're not going to send anybody your way. So let's talk a little bit about becoming referable. Here's kind of, I think of in terms of a BDA, before, during, and after the program. And I got the BDA, an acronym from Anna Leota, one of our past presidents. I like to kind of give her credit for that. So before the program, there's a couple things I do before the program that enhances my referability. I have several assessments that I will send to the client that they will often engage the participants in. Several quizzes, assessments, guides, and they send these things to the participants before the session to get them engaged. Sometimes we'll look at the results of that. Sometimes I'll look at the results. Sometimes we'll share it on the screen. Sometimes they bring it with them, but I do my research with some assessments ahead of time. People are engaged in my topic. Clients love that. This is the big one. I conduct 3 to 5 interviews of key attendees before my presentations. I'm doing this for a couple of reasons. First of all, I want to show the group that I'm doing my due diligence to get to know them. I just spoke this morning. I interviewed 3 folks. I gave them special prizes for working with me. They got applause from the audience, makes them the heroes for a couple minutes in my presentation. And then I look for ways to quote and to use what they say to me, again, to make them heroes. I look for well-respected folks in the organization. When I offer this, clients love this. They love when you are willing to do this. So I do it almost every single time, and it makes me a better speaker, and the clients love it. This is becoming more and more common. I'm sure many of you are doing the teaser videos to help promote. It could be to promote your session. It could be to promote the conference in general. I have kind of a template I use in a teleprompter. I go into my studio in my house. I change a few words based on the client and the date of the event, etc. So I can send a very well-produced teaser video. So this is some of the things I do before the session. And then during the session, I will, again, thank these folks. Usually one of the very first slides, it creates applause, it creates excitement in the room. They see them, their colleagues on the screen. It's always nice. And then, as I said, I will quote them. And so I'm looking for things to glean from them, make them the stars during the presentation. How can I talk about their situation? Maybe a challenge, maybe a success that they're having. Clients love this. I have a podcast. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a minute. But one of the things I've been doing is interviewing folks for the podcast and having the podcast come out right around the conference. So if it's appropriate, I'll ask the person hiring me, do you have some stellar performers? Do you have some top advisors that would make a good interview? Oh, yeah, we have a lot. Well, let me interview one. In this case, it was a couple, Diana and Katrina. And then the podcast episode comes out right around the conference, and they're getting, applause when they walk in the room because people listen to the podcast. And it just creates this synergy, this before, this during, and after, that makes a big splash. A little bit after the program, I have a reinforcement articles that I send. I have 7 articles that I will either plug into an autoresponder, and every 2 weeks it goes out to that person. But I ask them, do they want them for the autoresponder? Do they want them all at once? And they'll decide which they want. I have webinar. Sometimes I'll offer a webinar or a coaching call as part of the deal. I have a program with a large financial firm now, and they're taking me around the country, and they wanted me to work a coaching call, a 30-minute coaching call about a month after the presentation into the deal. I'm happy to do that. It's very easy and it helps me win the business. I have a lot of video reinforcement programs. I have a lot of guides, a lot of infographics. These I can use these as lead magnets. In this case, it's a lead magnet, right? If you want to go look at these, you buy them with your email address. You know how that works. Or sometimes I also have these printed up and I'll have them handed out at the event. Clients love these because they're very, very well produced, and they walk away with some tools to reinforce the message. I have a program called Rapid Fire Referrals. It's 52 short lessons that everyone who attended my event gets 1 per week for 52 weeks. And sometimes I'll sell this, sometimes I'll give it just to get the deal. I sell this on my website for $297 per person. So it has a very high value when I include it into a program. And I tell people that over a year, they'll get sick of me, but hopefully they won't get sick of the ideas. So I have a lot of value that gets dripped on folks afterwards. All right, so that's becoming referable before, during, after. Let's talk a little bit about asking for introductions, asking for referrals. And, most people hate to ask for referrals. By the way, this slide I use, this little video, I use this for role play. If I'm doing a workshop where I'm asking them role play, then I change the text as I hate the role play. It always gets a good laugh. People don't like to ask because they don't want to look like the creepy referral guy, right? When I do my coaching, people will call me and say, Bill, is there a way to ask for referrals, introductions? And I get the 3 Disney characters without looking like the creepy, sleazy, or cheesy referral guy. And the good news is there is a way to do that. So I used to, after an event, I would say to the meeting planner, the person hired me, let's schedule a debrief. Let's debrief the session next week, week after. Usually they take a vacation after the big conference, right? And I got maybe 50, 60% of the folks would do that debrief, but I realized that was really more about me and I needed to make it more about them. And so I just changed it from a debrief to a reinforcement call. So this call starts out all about reinforcing. And so I come prepared. How am I going to help them reinforce the message? Sometimes we've talked about a few of these items beforehand. Sometimes I introduce some others. A lot are free. Some they may have to make an investment, but it really is a reinforcement call. But I also come prepared to provide introductions to other speakers, other NSA members who are referable in my eyes. And so I'm helping the meeting planner. I'm also helping my colleagues. So I'm giving value. How do we reinforce the message? Value. How do we introduce them to other speakers? Value. And then I talk about the possibility of referrals. And so I make it kind of a brainstorming. There's no pressure here. If it's a national association, then I'm probably looking for introductions to the state associations and even maybe the locals if I know they're large and have good fees. If I'm speaking at the state, I'm looking to other states or to the national. If it's a corporation, I'm looking for other departments and other divisions within a corporation. I always find out, whoever's hiring me, I always find out their journey in the industry, how they came to work where they are now. And I usually learn that they worked at another company that may also be in my target market. And so I can come back with that as a possible introduction. And then I also look to get testimonials. There's my friend Rich Lipman used to call it testimonials. Testimonials are a cousin to referrals. They're part of our body of evidence. I am a bit of a testimonial machine. Let me kind of show you what I do around client testimonials. So if you go to advisorsrave.com, it's advisorsrave.com, and I got that address. It'll show up on the screen in a minute. You'll see that I have pages or screens of testimonials. These are video testimonials. In some cases, they sent the videos in. In other cases, we just did a Zoom and I captured it. I always have a call out of the testimonial because I know that not everyone's going to watch all these videos. They might watch one or two, they might listen to a couple while they scroll down the page, but they will often read some of the key things. So I have kind of the key call out there as well. So in this case, these are the kind of successful veterans. This is really helpful for coaching in particular, or if someone's interested in bringing me into a very high level conference. I also have for newer and mid-tenure advisors, if they want to bring me in for newer folks, or if it's a high-level advisor wants me to coach their team of newer folks. I've got evidence that my system works. I have evidence from leaders and managers and other partners in the industry, and I even have a few case studies. I also have a sizzle reel of about 90 seconds of 10 people with really short little testimonials about why they hired and why they're glad they hired Bill Cates. So if you just go to advisorsrave.com, you'll see the pages I just showed you. If you go to clientsraveaboutcates.com, then you'll see this little sizzle reel with testimonials. We are in the evidence business, right? We have to produce evidence to help people feel good about their decision, because hiring speakers is very nerve-wracking for people who do that. And the more evidence that we can give them, the better. A referral, a recommendation from someone they already know is one of the highest forms of evidence. And then we need other things too, like a demo video, like testimonials, other collateral. All right. So another big decision I made was to go after a target market, right? To create a reputation within a well-defined target market. I am what you would call double niched, meaning I have a topic expertise, client acquisition, mostly referrals, relationship marketing, but client acquisition in financial services. I didn't initially start out with financial services. It kind of found me. I was acting, looking for the vision, right? Sometimes we wait for the vision to come and nothing comes and we don't do anything. I like to take action while looking for the vision. And so about a year in, I realized that I was solving a blatant critical problem for financial service folks. And so that's when I made that decision to focus on financial services. So here are the benefits of a well-defined target market. You know their world better. You provide better solutions because you know their world. You are a better speaker, you're a better consultant, you're a better coach because you know their world. You can even help them with problems they didn't even anticipate. Why? Because you're doing work for friendly competitors, you're doing work for others in the industry. You can foresee challenges that they might not anticipate because you've already solved those for other people. Your messaging is going to be more relevant, more compelling. Here's the key thing in marketing and sales. I'm going to give you the one word that will make the hugest difference for you, and that is empathy. It's understanding and appreciation for the other person's situation. That's what I mean by radical relevance. In my book, Radical Relevance, is really getting to know your persona, your avatar, your who, getting to know your who so well that what you say, they see themselves in that. The questions you ask will show them that you understand their world because you know enough to ask them that question. I can't tell you how many times I've been on calls with managers and VPs and senior VPs, and I'll ask them a couple of questions of how their folks are doing in certain areas. And they'll go, were you in our meeting this morning? Were you like a fly on the wall? Right? I demonstrate that I know their world. And that automatically I stand head and shoulders above a lot of folks that are contacting them. You can create more products that are, and you can charge more money for your products when they're targeted. Right? I have a few generic products, but I also have products that are very targeted to financial professionals. And I know I can charge more because it's targeted for them and they know it's targeted for them. You can team up with other professionals. Many of you know Bill Backrack. I had a call with Bill Backrack earlier. Let's call him a friendly competitor. He also works with financial professionals. Other folks in Sam Richter in NSA, Mary Beth Kosmeski, other NSA members. These are friendly competitors, and we have an abundance mentality. And we team up. We do webinars together. We do coaching calls. We do videos, all kinds of stuff. So you can learn from and team up with other people that target the same industry. And then ultimately you create a reputation that draws people to you. I don't have to market too much. I don't have to prospect much. I do a little. I still want to remain relevant and keep my name out there. Let people, I've been doing this a long time, as you can probably tell. My voice is cracking, not because I'm old, it's because I have a cold. But nonetheless, I get a lot of people reaching out to me. And even when I speak in front of a group, people say, oh, I saw you 10 years ago. I saw you 20 years ago. I saw you 25 years ago. And so that reputation is what keeps my program going. And one of the reasons we do so well is I've established a reputation in a very clear target market. I cannot emphasize the power of this enough. Do you have to do this to build a successful business? No. Most of the members of the $1 Million Speakers Group, NSA's $1 Million Speakers Group, have a very clear target market like I do. Not all of them do, but most of them have one or two very clear target markets. So it does seem to be a common denominator. Again, not all, there's always exceptions, right? And then eventually you transition, right, to attraction rather than pushing. Characteristics of a profitable target market. It's got to be large enough to sustain the activity, to make it worth the investment of time. They've got to have the financial capacity to take advantage of what you're offering and the fees that you want to command. When I own 2 book publishing companies, and I sold those book publishing companies, and I started out with the printing industry, and I realized fairly quickly into that target market that printers have very low margins, and they don't have a lot of money to spend for training and coaching and speaking. And so I realized I had to switch markets that had a larger financial capacity for the work that I wanted to do. It helps that you enjoy and it's meaningful. When I started focusing on financial professionals, it wasn't my mission to serve financial professionals, but now it is. My mission, what drives me now in the being in this industry for 34 years, is I believe that every human being on this planet deserves to make educated financial decisions that are in their best interest. Let me say that again. Every person on this planet deserves to make financial decisions, educated financial decisions that are in their best interest. I have a book coming out in September all about thinking and mindset around finances. It's a parable book. It's a little bit different. That's how I'm going direct to market with that. But I also, through working with advisors, I help them reach more people. And so it's become a mission. I'm very missionary in my approach now. I wasn't when I first started. And that's helped me become more successful around this. You solve a blatant and critical problem. A good target market will do that. And here's a key one: formal and informal channels of communication. They have associations, they have societies, they have literal or virtual water coolers. They have ways of communicating with each other. That's what allows you to start to build that reputation, because they talk to each other. That's a very important component of a good target market, a good profitable target market. All right, so developed a system, created a reputation, created my relevance laboratory. What do I mean by that? Right, well, what is your relevance laboratory? How do you stay relevant? How have I stayed relevant in 34 years in this business? I went through, 9/11. I went through the recession in 2007, COVID, you name it. I've been through it all and have thrived quite well because I've worked on maintaining my relevance and adjusting what I say and how I say it to be as relevant as possible. So I'll give you a few ideas. My podcast. Now, I've been able to monetize my podcast. My podcast does turn into business for me. People listen to it, they hire me to coach. People listen to it, they hire me to speak. I have sponsors for my podcast. And even if none of that were true, it would still be worth it. It has made me a better speaker, a better coach, a better consultant, because now with 89 interviews of folks who are doing very well in my target industry, boy, do I have stories. Boy, do I have examples. This isn't just Bill Cates with his ideas. This is his ideas and other people's ideas come to life in the presentations. People love this. It makes it very, very real. And so having this podcast is probably one of the single most significant things I've done to maintain my relevance in this industry. And I put adjustments to my program. I have a new program coming out called Bridging Generations, and it's about the transfer of wealth that's happening from baby boomers eventually to their children, to the heirs. And that all came about being in this target market and knowing it was on their mind, and my effort to stay relevant with them. So what I'll do is I'll share some of these stories. This is Lester Matlock talks about a bucket list and how he has his clients finance the items on their bucket list, and how he takes the idea of a bucket list into financial planning. And people love his examples. It's actually a very fun story I tell about Lester. And then a kind of a similar one with Brian Sweet. What he does is dream boards and vision boards for his clients. And when he helps his financial planning clients do a vision board, can you imagine the relationship that gets developed with helping a client with that? It's valuable. It builds a business friendship. And it's no wonder both of these guys have million-dollar practices. So I'll use these interviews in my presentations, just like I use the interviews with the folks that are in the audience. So coaching, I don't really like to coach a lot. I like group coaching. The one-on-one coaching, I do some. It's not lost on me that my company name is Referral Coach International. But I do this because it helps me stay relevant. I see how people respond to what I teach, what works, what doesn't work, the challenges they have. So when I'm then in front of a group speaking, I can say, I know some of you have a challenge with this or will experience this challenge because I've seen it firsthand with the folks that I'm doing. I'm in the results producing business. I don't know about you. I'm in the results producing business, and I'm not just sharing ideas. I'm sharing ideas to help people produce results. And there is a difference. And there are speakers that share ideas, and there are speakers that share ideas designed to help produce results. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Consulting, similar thing. The pre-program interviews, that's my relevance laboratory. Post-program interviews with folks, staying in touch with these folks, that's my relevance laboratory. Research for my blogs. I write a weekly blog. I've been doing a weekly blog for, I don't know how many years, maybe 12, 15 years, probably. I repurpose the content all the time in all kinds of ways. That's my relevance laboratory. And then, of course, my podcast. Right? So what are you doing to maintain and heighten your relevance? And then the last thing, video-based training that includes licensing. So let's dig into that a little bit, creating video-based products. My second licensing deal, which is what led to the video-based stuff, is I was doing a lot of work for Mutual of Omaha, and they were bringing me around the country. It was kind of like a road trip with two other speakers. And they said, look, Bill, we love this. It's great. We can't keep doing this. We can't afford this. Have you ever done any licensing deals? I go, well, one, well, we'd love to videotape you. We'd love to record this. This was when it was videotape many, many years ago. And they said the magic question. They said, look, sometimes our advisors, our field folks respond better when it doesn't come from the home office. They like it when it's an outside resource. Would you mind if we didn't put our branding, if we didn't put our logo on this? I go, yeah, that'd be okay. So we produced this great video-based training program that I could then sell to everybody else. So we started with VHS, and as a publisher, a book publisher, I love packaging. I loved watching the UPS trucks come and pick up the boxes and ship this stuff out. I used to have a 3,500 square foot warehouse shipping out all my products. It was a lot of fun. Then, of course, we went to DVDs and CDs and all that. And of course, eventually they became obsolete. So I had a trip to the dump with about 60,000 DVDs and CDs. They were my babies, and I had to lift them off over the little ledge to into a garbage bin. And I go, how do I do this? And I finally dropped one of the box, and it exploded with all these CDs and DVDs going everywhere. And that was like a little kid with fireworks, and I just couldn't throw them in fast enough. It was a lot of fun. 60,000 of those I threw out at $1 a piece. Now everything's online, of course. I use Kajabi. There are a lot of platforms out there. They all have their strengths and weaknesses. I've been with Kajabi for a while. I like it. It does what we need. This is kind of what it looks like. We have 4 main courses in our academy, the Cates Academy. By the way, it didn't used to be the Cates Academy. We had other names over the years, but here's what happened. It was a while ago when MetLife, which no longer has agents, but MetLife was looking to bring in some training, and they went to the field. They went to all the folks, and I said, "Who are you using? And they kept saying, "We're using Cates. We're using Cates. We're using Cates." My clients branded it as Cates. I called it the Referral Advantage Program. They didn't call it that. They called it Cates. So that's why I turned it into the Cates Academy, right? They gave me the brand on that one. And then here's kind of what the courses look like and the different lessons, and all video based. Everyone gets the audio, the video, and the transcript. The audio is downloadable. The transcript is downloadable, but the video is not. One of the features that is a big selling feature on this is, you'll see it to the top right there. It says talk to Bill. They have access to me at any point in time. Anyone in the academy can send me a message. I get a few a week, right? That's part of my relevance laboratory, because I see how people are responding. Sometimes it's just compliments. They just love the material. In other cases, it gives me an idea for a blog because someone had a question going through one of the programs, and I want to solve that problem for them. So why video-based learning? Well, everyone essentially gets the same training experience. Rather than train the trainer, where I'm training other individuals that have different levels of talent and affinity to the material, now they get me every single time, right? Don't have to train the trainers. It's easier for them to see what they're buying, because I can show them the videos. I'll give them a week demo, and they go and pilot the course for themselves. And then reinforcement becomes easier because they have access to these videos for about a year. Most of the deals are for a year. So the low-level licensing with small companies, I should say, they go to Kajabi and they get access there. For the higher level, big deals with the corporations, I send the assets, the videos and all the assets to the company to put on their own learning management system, or LMS. Self-study. This is the way a lot of video training works. People self-study. Okay, that's fine. I have individuals who buy the course, self-study. Some probably buy the course and never go through it. We've all done that, haven't we? Some companies will tell me, they say, look, Bill, if we leave people to their own device to watch this, they may not watch it. We've got to do it in a classroom. I said, fine. It's a little less efficient, but it can be done. But a lot of folks like to use what's often known as flipped classroom, where people will go through the videos and then we get together for coaching and a little more training. Then they go through more videos and then they get together, and they already have that base of knowledge when they come to the class. This is what saved my butt during COVID, right? Everybody's working from home. They're still going through the Cates Academy, right? Because they don't have to come together to go through the Cates Academy. So this really saved my butt during that. And then real quick, a little bit more on licensing. Let me tell you why I call this printing money legally. By the way, selling intellectual property, this is essentially what is meant by intellectual property, right? It's the process of the owner of the property, me. I grant permission to another party to use that property under very defined conditions, like the time frame. I did a deal with Merrill Lynch. I said within domestic United States, and then they came to me and they say, Bill, we have offices in South America and England and in Asia. How much would it cost to be able to put them into the licensing deal? Now, I like the way they asked that question. What would it cost to add them to the licensing? Right? If they had said to me, can we include them? I probably would have said yes, but made a little more for that. So define conditions in exchange for compensation with a legal agreement. If you would like to get my licensing agreement, I will be happy to send to you. I will send you 2 versions. I will send you the legalese version, and I will also send you a ChatGPT translation of the legalese version. I've actually used that ChatGPT translation for a few clients where I knew if I sent them a legal sounding document, it would open a can of worms. So my ChatGPT was a translation of that. Didn't seem quite so legalese, they didn't get their legal department involved. So I will send you both. Just send it to me. Bill Cates, and there's underneath my videos, my email address, billcates@referralcoach.com, and just say send licensing agreement. I'll know what it's all about. Happy to send that off to you. Real quick with AIG, what happened here is the guy came to me, he says, Bill, we got end of year money. Don't you love to hear that? We got end of year, got to spend it before the end of the year. We've been meaning to bring your stuff in. What can we do? And so I did a 3-year deal. I priced it at $450,000. He says, we don't have that much end of the year money. So we're negotiating, right? Back and forth, back and forth. Now, understand, there's no cost of sale here. It costs me nothing to sell this to them. All I got to do is just execute an agreement, right? And so I could have sold it for $10 if I wanted to, no cost per sale. And so finally I said to Art Hyman, I said, Art, all right, we're going back and forth here. He has to report to Joe Carbone. I said, Art, what would make you a hero in Joe's eyes? If you could get this in, for what amount would this be a done deal? And you'd be a hero. He says, yeah, if we can do this for 145,000, done deal, no questions asked. I said, done, let's do it. So instead of 450, I got $145,000, but then it lasted 15 years on top of that, right? So that was a fun negotiation. Merrill, we did $450,000 for 3 years. Guardian, just some of the different deals I've done. This is a Canadian firm. All right, so this is why it's printing money legally, and then I will shut up and take a few questions. I want you to see where that arrow is, right? That yellow arrow, it says this fee of $50,000 is due by December 31st, 2018. The renewal, my cost of sale, what I had to do to renew this for another $50,000 was, oh, hit the wrong button. Change it to 2019. You see that? From 2018, I changed the number to 2019. I made $50,000. That's why I call this printing money legally, because it really is a cash cow, licensing your intellectual property. So I am going to stop the share. And if we have a few minutes for questions, I'm happy to take questions. If your question doesn't get answered or you think of something later, just shoot me an email. I'm stuck in a hotel room near DFW. I'll be happy to get back to you as quick as I possibly can. So what do you, I don't know how you guys take the question. Do you mute or do you do the chat?
Trying to come off. There we go. Yeah, I was just going to break everybody up there. What's going on for you guys? As Bill's been speaking, what has risen up for you?
Lori, raise your hand.
Yep.
Good evening. Bill, can you share a little bit more about the meat of what you're providing for that retainer for the licensing? Is it just the educational pieces and videos, or it includes coaching, or all that you'd mentioned earlier on?
Yes, in most cases, it's just the assets. They get the videos, the audios, and the collateral material, PDFs, and all that sort of stuff. Occasionally, there'll be 1 or 2 webinars in the deal. Occasionally, there's some coaching of their top producers, but very little of that. What I usually work into the deal is I will speak to them and I'll discount my rate. So instead of X, it'll be X minus 20%. And so they still have to hire me to speak, but they get a discount because they have the licensing deal. And then for some of these deals, just because they've lasted so long, I'll just say, hey, do you want to do something? Do you want to do a webinar? Right? I just try to add a little surprise value along the way. But in most cases, it's just the assets. Now, you may have to do differently. Sometimes they want a little more of you, and that's fine. If you have to create something specific for them, that's a little different, right? Mine's kind of generic financial services, so I can sell the same thing to a lot of different people. If you have to create something specific for them, then there's 2 fees. There's the creation of the product, could be 10 grand, 20 grand, 30 grand, whatever you got to figure out, managing your time and resources. And then there's a license to use that intellectual property. It's still your property that you license to them to use. It's not a work for hire. There's a difference. Work for hire, they own it. You can do that too if you want them to own your intellectual property, but then they own it, you don't. So now you got to get permission to use it. So I've done a few hybrids. I've done some things where they've owned a little bit of it, but mostly it's you know, just the assets.
Thank you. And last part of that, is it typically tiered when you're offering it, or you just offer one price?
Sorry, my phone is ringing because I think my Uber Eats just arrived. Say the question again.
Do you typically offer it in tiers at different levels, or do you just negotiate one price?
Yeah, we negotiate it. I don't do tiers of levels. I don't figure out how I do want to find out how many people are going through the program so I can kind of figure out what are they likely to invest. If they got 100 people or 1,000 people, how much are they likely to invest per person? But we don't charge per person per se. We're not trying to keep track of how many people go through the program. That's just an accounting nightmare. And truth be told, it's really kind of what the market will bear. I had an email earlier today from an NSA member who just got somebody interested in licensing, and we're going to hop on the phone. We're going to figure out what will the market bear? What are they willing to invest? Now, he doesn't solve a blatant critical problem, unfortunately. So he's not going to be able to get as much as I might get for the problem that I solve, but it's still very easy money.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Bill, can you take a question from Sylvia?
Of course I can.
Yeah, hi,
My
Bill.
Uber
Thanks.
Eats will wait.
I was going to say, can your food wait?
Yeah,
Yes, Ken.
I'll make it very quick. Sorry, my camera keeps going off. Thank you again for this really deep insight. Question for you about the testimonials. What's your general sort of approach to, especially the ones on video? Because I don't have a hard time necessarily getting people to sort of write something in an email, but what's some of the language you're using that's making people feel comfortable being on camera, sharing, endorsing you, essentially?
Yes, first of all, I say you know, sometimes I hear them say something nice, right? So that kind of triggers it. Or, you know, as I get to talk about that, then all right, they have something nice to say, right? So that's like, you know, I love to get a statement from you if you don't mind. I don't even call it a testimonial, I call it a statement. If you'd be open to that. And they go, yeah, happy to do that. Now, what I would love, if you're open to it, is I would love to schedule a Zoom. And you can take your time and you can just give me a 20, 30-second something. We can record a couple times if you, oh yeah, happy to do that. That's pretty much what I do. And then I make sure that, you know, when I'm recording it, I'm just recording them on the screen. So I don't have to edit myself out of the screen later. And most of the people nail it in the first go. Some people have to do it a second time. I've had a couple that are unusable. They you know, they just weren't made to do what we do in our business. So I just ask for it. Now, real quick, which goes along with your question, if you're going to use testimonials, make them as real as you possibly can, meaning their full name, where they live, their company name, if you can, photograph of them. That's why I like video and the video screen and then the statement. You don't want JG Dallas. All right, does JG really exist? Is this really a person? Right? So you want, as far as they'll let you go, photo, full name, company, where they live, as much as you'll be allowed to do. Now, in my industry, most of these folks don't want their company name mentioned because there's a lot of compliance around that. And so we just don't even put their company. If I put like New York Life under somebody's name, I would get a call from New York Life saying, remove that. So we just don't even message with company names in my particular situation.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Bill. Any other questions that are hanging around there, or compliments, things you want to thank Bill for sharing with you? I know for myself, Bill, I love how you always bring it back to being relevant every time, over and over. And that really keeps it stuck in my mind. LaDonna, can you jump in here?
Yeah.
I just want to say I have taken notes till my hand is cramped. I am so pumped up just from, you know, I'm thinking I want to sit down and have coffee with this dude. I'm a new member of Black NSA, and I got to tell you, I already feel like I got my money's worth. Everybody's been so welcoming, and I just love the information that you are freely sharing. You know, there are times that I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I'm like today, oh yeah, I can do this. Oh, I'm doing this. So I want to say thank you. This has been great. Absolutely great.
Stay in touch. Let me know how you implement and what works, what successes or what struggles. Alana?
That was great.
I just wanted to just quickly thank you for reframing a debrief call. I mean, if I got nothing else out of that, it was like, oh, the debrief is about you. I mean, I'm like, yeah, that's not what it should be. So I'm completely reworking that. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and just have a few tools that you get prepared to share.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be selling them anything, but then you're going to learn what they have to say, and you're going to hear them say good stuff, right? And that can lead, and then that leads into the introductions and the testimonials. But you make it about them first.
Yeah, no, I
and
love
then the
that.
rest
Thank you.
follows.
Thanks. Seed influence.
All right. Anybody else want to chime in before let Bill go have his dinner?
I just want to say thank you. I've been a speaker for many years, but I'm also an attorney by trade. So that kind of takes over because it's the quick money. And the scary thing is I write licensing contracts. I never thought to send the dumbed down version. I explain it to my clients when I give it to them so that they know how to negotiate for themselves, but never thought about using ChatGPT to dumb it down and send it over. and I annotate. The ones that I sell, I annotate for my clients. I do it, but never thought about that. So I thank you for that tip.
It did a great job too. I look at a paragraph per paragraph. It's like perfect. Most of the time I just use it for internal use.
Right.
But like I said, there's a couple times I've used it to not make it feel quite so legally, and they signed off on it. So
I think my follow-up to that, well, there are some internal, like some that are made specifically for attorneys that I use. I think they're a little bit better, but if you're good at prompting, you can get some really good stuff. My question is, I write those big numbers and I'm looking like I can do what that person's doing. I'm actually more equipped and more qualified than the person I'm writing the deal for. How do you get over getting all of those zeros out of your mouth or really seeing what the market can bear? Because I think I'm worth millions, but I also don't want to price myself out of every single deal getting started to really get into corporate training. So I've gotten 4 zeros on corporate training. I want to get to like 7 or at least 5 on corporate training.
well, part of it again goes back to it really is the value is in the eye of the beholder, right? Value is in the eye of the person hiring you. And if you can position yourself, what you do that solves a blatant critical problem, they know they have the problem, or you help them see they have the problem. And now you help them see how they're losing money or missing opportunities or whatever the critical nature. There's deadlines that they have to meet. People will move heaven and earth to solve critical problems. So it's gonna be an evolution for you. And in pricing, I like to kind of think, all right, what have they invested for me to speak live? What did that end up being per person? All right, well, if it's a large group, it might have been $100 per person. They're not going to pay that for a licensing deal. But if it's like several thousand, would they pay $20 a person to go through my program? Right, so I just kind of play around with that. I always ask them if they've done licensing programs in the past. I always ask them, what were part of that. Some have, some haven't. And then I'll often give them 3 choices. I'll give them kind of a bare bones that'll, do a decent job for what they want. And then I'll have kind of, so I got the, I don't know what you call it, like the economy model and the mid-level model and the luxury model. And then what happens is when you give them 3 choices, a lot of people automatically pick the middle choice if they have the budget, because they want as much as they can get, but they can't afford the top choice. So part of it just, you feeling good about your value, what the market will bear, being willing to negotiate, and And you got to realize if this is something you're not creating from scratch, it already exists. Then there, you know, and it's not you having to go deliver it. In my case, I mean, I do deliver it, but that's different. But in this case, they're just getting the videos. I've got zero cost of sale here, or, you know, virtually zero. So, you know, it takes me half an hour to get the files all sent over on Dropbox. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Bill, can you just in a couple words describe what do you consider the critical problem that you're solving in the financial world? Or I'm assuming there's many, but what's the
That's
primary?
more clients as efficiently as possible. They all want more clients. In a sea of sameness, in a sea of noise of digital marketing, and folks who are a lot of cases already very successful, and but they want more of the right types of clients. That's a critical need for them. And when it comes to referrals and introductions, most people are terrible at it. And not just advisors, speakers. I've spoken all over the world to all kinds of industries. Most people are terrible at it. And so they know they've got the problem and they know they need the solution. In financial services, studies have shown that 85% of people who hire a financial advisor do so through the recommendation of a trusted friend, colleague, other advisor, or family member, right? So they know that 85% of the people that they want to meet them through a recommendation. So it's just blatant out there. The challenge I have that with the softer types of topics that people have, and you know, they're important too, and they're important to you, but if you don't tie them to like employee turnover or culture or sales or something they can, you know, sink some statistics into, then they see it as aspirational. And you can still be somewhat successful in the business. You don't have to solve blatant critical, but it just does make it a lot easier.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah.
I see Lethea's had her hands up. Lethea, can you chime in? And Bill, can you stay starving for just another moment?
Yeah, the hotel's called me again, but it's not a problem. They wasn't supposed to be delivered for another half hour, so I don't know.
Well,
Go ahead.
I just want to thank you, Bill. You've helped impact my business personally. With the licensing deal, you helped talk me through a Wells Fargo opportunity some years ago. And every time I have put the request out to ask you to speak at either one of my personal events or here now, we've asked you to speak for Black NSA, you've always given a yes. So I just wanted to personally thank you for your yes.
You're welcome. It's the spirit of NSA, the spirit of Cabot, and I'm just an all-around nice guy. What can I say? Happy to do it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bill. A round of some share here, emojis, reactions for Bill as we say goodbye.
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
You've been a fabulous speaker. You've blessed us tremendously, and we appreciate you. Have a great night.